I'm good?
About 5 seconds.
Okay.
You're all set.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. It is July 20th, and it's 6:02 p.m., and this is the Curriculum Committee's Special Education Subcommittee. And we have a very exciting meeting tonight. We get to introduce some new hires and some recent appointments within the district specific to special education and SRBI, which technically falls under curriculum, but is certainly a piece of our puzzle. So with that, I will hand over the introductions to Mr. Pennington.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be taking on this new role in Norwalk Public Schools. I was previously the principal at Row 8 Elementary School, and I did have the honor of serving on the Sped Committee, who will be presenting this evening, which is exciting. And we have made some new hires that will be joining our team soon. So I think it's important to give them an opportunity to just quickly introduce themselves. So our first hire was Fatima Tejada, who's our Education Administrator of Specialized Instruction. And we also have Hannah Cohen, who's going to be our Supervisor of Specialized Instruction for Related Services. And so I think it's important that we give them a chance to just tell us a little bit about themselves. So Fatima, would you like to start?
Sure, my pleasure. So thank you all for the warm welcome. I know that I had spoken to and met Erica before all of you here, but thank you for having me, and I'm very excited to start my work here with you guys. I will be, to answer your question, David, I believe, I will be coming on board August 2nd, so I will be with you guys soon. So just to give you guys a little background about myself, I have been in educational leadership for a few years now. I got my own 9.2 from Sacred Heart University. I hold a master's in early childhood, general ed, and special education. Most of my education career has been in the special education field and realm. I earned my 6th year at the University of New England, and my undergrad at NYU. I also did a few courses at Columbia University, but then I moved over to NYU to finish my master's coursework. And I am currently enrolled in a school leadership and management with Harvard University. Again, I continuously prepare myself for these types of roles and want to make sure that I am the best equipped to be able to be transparent with the families, the students, and the schools that I work with. So I am also currently an educational consultant with Little Lola and Tots, which is an educational program in Brooklyn, New York, that I co-chaired with one of my very close friends. So she's working on that, and we're basically also I'm providing support to the parents in that special education field, and more specifically also just culturally with cultural exposure and diversity. In my past years, most of my education career I did spend with Greenwich Public Schools, and again with them I was more in that special education realm. I chaired PPT meetings. I was also part of that dual exceptionality group of teachers and administrators, where I was very involved with the special education students that needed that extra support, but with also the advanced learners and their dual exceptionality. I specifically also initiated and organized Saturday programs and curriculum events in order to, again, be more transparent with the parents in terms of curriculum and what their child or children were being exposed to and how they could further assist at home. A lot of the families that I happened to work with were families that had a sort of medial socioeconomic status and parents that were not available during the school day to attend certain events. So I made sure that those parents got that information through these weekend and evening events. Most recently, I was also with Stanford Public Schools as an Iep Compliance Coordinator. In that role, I was basically the person who trained and set up state and district information for the school buildings. A lot of the administrators were not specifically special education trained, so I was the person who helped train them in those skills and area. I made sure that I informed them of what the IEP document should look like, how it should be written, and specifically instructional supports for the students. I also supported them in terms of, again, being able to have the staff fully trained in the specific areas and how to work with the students along with the parent. In that position, I also streamlined the PPT meetings by developing a process for all the buildings to follow, so making it sort of a continuous situation. And again, in the hopes of increasing the communication between the parents and the transparencies as to what was happening in the buildings and how we were working with the IEP document and making sure that it coincided with all of the services that were, again, as a live legal document, with all of the services that were supposed to be rendered to that student, in the hopes of making sure that I'm communicating effectively with the parents, and also allowing that the PPT meetings to go more smoothly and efficiently so that we could get more parental input and discussion regarding working towards the students' achievement and their independence, because that's basically what we're striving for in this specific realm in education. And with all that said, I started as a dual language teacher at PS 75 in New York City, but most of my work has been in special education here in Connecticut.
Thank you so much for that introduction.
You.
And next we have with us our new related services supervisor, Hannah Cohen. If you'd like to just take a few minutes and introduce yourself to our committee.
Sure. Hi, so I'm Hannah Cohen. I am a speech and language pathologist. I have been a speech and language pathologist for 18 years now. Prior to that, I was a special education teacher as well. So my undergraduate degree was in special education, and I taught special education at the preschool level as well as the elementary level for about 4 years. And I did that work at Arizona State University. I have a master's degree in early childhood education from Northern Arizona University. And then I went on to the University of Oregon for my communication disorders and sciences degree to become a speech and language pathologist. So since that time, I have worked in Arizona, worked in as a speech and language pathologist then in New York, moved to Connecticut and have worked in Darien, and then more recently in the Trumbull Public Schools, where I've been for the past 15 years as a speech language pathologist. This past year, I was the team leader for the speech and language department in Trumbull, serving with other department chairs, as well as working very closely with PPS director and the coordinator of special education, just to make sure that services across the district were aligned and functioning as they should be. So I am very excited for this opportunity, not only to continue in terms of my educational leadership role. I did receive my 092 last spring, also from Sacred Heart University, which was a great program to go through. And, this job for me is very closely aligned with my desire to move more towards educational leadership, but also working with my related service providers who I love. So, I've always worked very closely with OTs and PTs and adaptive PE, and have done a lot of collaborating and co-sessions, in addition to the special education teachers, of course. So I'm very excited to join Norwalk. I've heard nothing but great things about the district and the families and the schools. So I'm very, very excited to jump in. I will be starting officially August 16th. I'm also currently running the ESY program at in the Trumbull Public Schools, which I've done for the past 2 years. So, excited to kind of bring some of that experience to Norwalk as well. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah.
And Rob, before we go around and introduce the members of this group and then Sped back, could you just touch upon at a very high level how you guys are going to work together and how we're going to make curriculum and special education really feel like they're infused moving forward?
Oh, absolutely. And I just want to give them that opportunity. But as I'm taking on the Assistant Superintendent of Schools role, I think one of the big pieces is bringing curriculum and specialized learning together as one department so that we are working collaboratively and we are having these conversations together and we're able to make decisions for the best for all students. And I think that that is one of the pieces as the new Assistant Superintendent of Schools. Part of my goal is to bring these departments that were separated at one point. Now we are one department and really bringing everyone around that table, because it is, and not just specialized learning and curriculum, but also our MLL team as well, because I think that that's really going to help us to move the work for everyone.
And there's been some concern in the community about when that does happen, when we become more infused, as I mentioned, that special education and specialized learning will get lost in the shuffle. It'll get absorbed and we won't get the attention that we once had with having a chief of specialized learning. And I think, if I could speak for Dr. Estrella, the appointments that she made and the positions that she created were very intentional, so that does not happen. And maybe you can just make the community feel a little bit better about, how we will still embrace those that have an IEP and there's twice exceptional students, while also ensuring that there's inclusion within the larger district.
Absolutely. And I think the other piece around that, I think the other level or lever, I guess, is that idea of communication. And that's something that we're talking about, is how are we communicating with our families and responsiveness and working together to support all of our students. And I think that as Ms. Tejada comes on, that will be part of our work collaboratively to support all of our students.
Okay. So why don't we take a pause and just go around the horn of who everybody is, and if you have any questions for Hannah or Rob or Fatima, this is a good opportunity to ask them, and it's also a good opportunity for the minutes keeper to capture the who's who. So I will start. I'm Erica De Palma. I am the chair of the Special Education Committee on the BOE, but I also sit on the Curriculum Committee. On my screen, Suzanne, you're next.
Okay, hi, I'm Suzanne Korshutz. I am a member of the Board of Education. I'm on the Curriculum Committee as well as the Special Education Curriculum Committee. Welcome to everyone in their new roles, and some new faces and some really fine, I don't want to say older faces, but faces that we know already. So I look forward to this being done, because I think that when in central office, it's shown that special education students are students first, and the structure set up that way. It's the right message to give to school buildings and to school teachers and administrators. So I think this is a very powerful structure, and I think we have a powerful team in place. So it's going to be a great year.
Okay, next is David on my screen.
Sorry, unmute. I'm David Huvelman, and I am the chairman of the Norwalk Special Education Parents Advisory Council, or NSPEDPAC, as we refer to ourselves. And I'm here tonight as a guest. I'm going to be presenting to our annual report, but I just want to say welcome, Hannah and Fatima. Very exciting, and can't wait for to hit the ground running and start to continue the collaboration that we started to build with NSPED PAC between the educators and the parents here. And Rob, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to you joining us from time to time as well, since I believe the information flows up to you at this point now. So excited, and thank you.
Okay, and Amy?
I'm Amy Hodgins. I am a parent here in Norwalk. I'm also co-chair of the NSPAC and Sped PAC committee, along with David, and Rob was on our committee last year. Congratulations to everybody. We're excited to have you here. And we look forward to working together as parents and as NSPED PAC members.
Okay. And Liz?
Hi, everybody. I'm Liz Shaheen. I'm principal of Silvermine Dual Language Magnet School, and also proud parent of 2 Norwalk boys. One that has gone through special education, and actually both have, now that I think about it, 2 boys that have gone through special education here in Norwalk. And first of all, just welcome to our new folks, and congratulations once again to Rob. I'm really excited. I'm curious. I'm anxious to see how this is all going to work. I appreciate the thinking behind it, and I can see it all comes down to how things are structured. And I agree 100% with what was previously said. A lot of times our special education students are seen as separate or in addition. And I think that integrating the students in this way and building curriculum with those students in mind from the beginning, instead of being the afterthought, I really, really appreciate that. So excited, and can't wait to hear more.
Thank you, Liz. And Eric?
Hi, Eric Niederer, parent of 2 boys in Norwalk Public Schools. One's in Fox Run, neurotypical, although he's been in as a neurotypical as part of some of the NEST programs there. And I have my older one who is going into 8th grade NEST program at Ponus Ridge Middle School, and has also seen Miss Hare from time to time when he was back at Fox Run. A board member of NSPED PAC, and parent co-chair of the SGC at Ponus, and former co-chair of the SGC at Fox Run. And congratulations and welcome to everyone.
Thanks, Eric. And Emily?
Good evening, I'm Emily Hare. I am a speech pathologist at Fox Run Elementary School, and I work primarily in the NEST program there, which is a co-taught program for kids identified on the spectrum. And I'm a part of this committee, the SPED subcommittee, relatively new to the committee, but really looking forward to collaborating with everyone here. And also, Hannah, really excited to have you as our direct supervisor. So welcome, everyone.
Okay, and before we move on to the NSPED PAC report, does anybody have any other questions? Or Hannah, Fatima, Rob, do you have any questions for this committee? No? Okay.
Not at this time, but I think that as we work more collaboratively together, I will have questions and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Same here.
All right. All right, so we're very lucky to have 3 members of NSPED PAC on the call today. There's 4 members, 5 members total now, that help keep us in good, have a good line of communication between the 2 groups. So Amy, David, Rob, I'm not sure which of you plans to present today, and are you projecting, or are you just going to talk us through your report, which the larger team has received?
Yeah, we're just going to talk through some of the points and then open it up for question and answer, if that's all right. Wasn't planning on actually presenting the pages. I mean, it's written word. I think we can talk it through.
Yep.
To say that this year was odd would be a misnomer. It was challenging. It was odd. It was wild. It was innovative, and it led us to a lot of great discussions and communication with through Ed and SpedPAC, and a lot of discussions that led to hopefully some good discoveries. For sort of the background, NSPEDPAC is it's a collaboration between educators and parents within the district who are affected by and deal with special education. We have, a larger membership, which is anyone who in the district who has ties to special education, please come. On a smaller level, we're 23 voting members, 13 of which are parents, 7 of which are educators. We have 2 high school students, which was a new thing that we brought in this year, high school or transition students. And then we have a community member as well. And that's the voting part of the council. But anyone who comes, who wants to participate, who wants to be a part of the discussions, can sit on committees and be part of the working groups that we form each year to look at different issues that we're affected by. When NSPEDPAC started, it was a hard room to be in because there was a lot of tension between parents and educators within the district. And we brought this together into a room and started talking. And some of those first discussions, it was hard. There were hard things said. It was hard to be in the room. What has developed and evolved and hopefully is continuing to grow is a much more open sense of conversation within the room, where we're able to actually share and discuss and work through some of these issues and find places to bring advice to the Board of Ed, which is what we're doing tonight by the report that we deliver every year. It's interesting because, what's been said tonight in the conversation, the introductions that Mr. Pennington gave and that Ms. Tejada and Ms. Cohen talked about communication. And communication is still at the forefront of what we have recognized and identified as a place where we need to work and develop better systems for communication. We worked on 2 different sort of areas this year, and it was hard this year because we were remote the entire time. And, as evidenced by us being in this meeting tonight on the Zoom platform, that's how we were able to conduct our meetings as well. So it was a lot of discussions and a lot of breakout sessions with the different committees and talking about the different areas. We identified 2 areas that we the year before that we rolled into this year as well, and that is communication and Iep compliance. So if we look at communication, the biggest factor that we sort of identified and talked about a lot, which is the fact that trust is the key component. And it's the key component in the special education process, the trust between the parent and the educators, and the trust between the educators and central office, that the support is there to then achieve the ultimate goal, which is success for the children. And, the PPT we identify as the first line establishing that trust. And so we look at the PPT process in communication, and we're concerned about the language barriers that are all too often present within the PPT process. We have a large number of children within our district who come from families who English is not their first language. And we feel that it's an area that can be improved upon. We have to find ways to get translation into the PPT process so that people do not feel alienated from that process, and we feel that that's a large part of, or large component of what we identified as an area of concern for the district. The other thing that we found within communication is identifying who is the key point of contact in any given certain situation. And, and that can be at the building level, that can be at the central office level. Who does a parent turn to get that information, a parent or guardian, when they need that information? And that was something that we talked at length about. We also identifying who the point of contact is when it comes to getting information from central office to the building level. Now, the report that we wrote and worked on in that area, we now realize that this may be changing because we have a very different structure, and a structure that we're all going to be learning and discovering as we go. We understand that special education is being brought more into the building level as it's the 4-point and where that point of contact would exist at the building level. And we're hopeful that as we uncover how that structure is going to work moving forward, that we're going to realize that there is a very clear point of contact. At any rate, that was one of the areas that we looked at and identified as an area of concern. The largest thing from a communication standpoint, and I think that this feeds into this as well, is that what is the communication policy? What is the baseline policy for how communication is handled? Whether it's communication flowing downward from central office to the building to the parents, or whether it's flowing upward from parent to the building to central office, how is the process? How is that communication handled? And we don't see a cohesive form of communication or form of that process. So we ask the question of whether or not the district wants to look at creating some sort of policy for how, or standard for how communication is handled. And that was a big part of a lot of the discussions that went on in the communication work group was, what would a policy like that perhaps look like? We didn't drill down into that. We talked about it in a much higher level, that the need for that policy, so that in the given situation where, a parent or guardian with their child moves to a different school for, maybe they move within the city and they move to a different neighborhood school, that they goes with them an understanding of how that communication would flow. The same for staff. If you have staff that moves in a given year to a different school, that that flow of communication happens in the same way, and that there's a policy or standard for it. And we feel that that's something that may be lacking, and that the district may want to look at that as a moving forward. The other area that we looked at is the area of Iep compliance, and the idea of what Iep compliance is and how it's handled going forward. And I'm going to ask my colleague Amy, who sat on the Iep compliance work group, sort of go back to understand. We broke into 2 working groups, and that's how we sort of arrived at our areas of concern. So I'm going to let her talk about the Iep compliance area for a minute, and then we'll just sort of do a wrap up of some other ideas and conclusions. Amy?
I don't have the document in front of me, so David, you're going to have to walk me through it. But sure. One of the areas for Iep and compliance was, and this is, we think this issue is no longer relevant. It was double entry of notes from service providers who have to enter information from the IEP into the Medicaid system, as well as the IEP system. And that was taking a lot of time, especially with large caseloads. So we had suggested that maybe a software program could be installed that would allow the service providers to only have to enter once, and it would carry through to both systems. I do believe that the new state IEP compliance system that's coming in, I think it's next year, I have heard that that is going to be working with Medicaid. If so, that's fantastic. If not, that was definitely a concern. We have lost some terrific service providers due to the fact that the workload of these double notes was just taking their time over into the weekend and late at night. So that was definitely a concern.
And Rob, can I ask you, that was a
David,
plug-in.
can you point me to point number 2?
While David is looking that up, Rob, that was a plug-in that we had to buy. It's not in the base package, the Medicaid piece. And I had sent a follow-up on that. Do you know, and I think it has to go to Tom for approval. Do you know if they've gone through that process yet?
I don't, but I can follow up. This
Okay.
this is for SEDS, and yeah, it is an add-on.
It's an add-on, yeah. So, and I can make a note to ping you about that too.
Absolutely. I can just shoot Mr. Hamilton a message.
Okay, great.
The correct me if I'm wrong, the new IEP goes into effect in the 22-23 year, correct?
And training starts this year. Yep.
Okay.
We have training this year, correct?
Training this year. All right. Another area, Amy, maybe you can talk about this also. You guys got into, which was the reality is that these two areas, the communication and IEP compliance, also have a lot of sort of cross-pollination that we found in our discussions that they go hand in hand. And one of the areas that were identified was the communication regarding related service provider absenteeism, or situations where a person was on a leave of absence or they were out for an injury, and that it fell into two different sort of categories. One was parents and guardians not knowing that the service provider wasn't there or had been changed or they were missing hours. But also there were discussions from the educators on a building level that they didn't know why a person wasn't there and what was going on and who was filling in for them. So the communication between central office wasn't happening back down to the providers within that building. You want to talk a little more about that, Amy?
Yes, we did find that central office was either aware of somebody had terminated or was not aware. There was a disconnect between the building level and central office, and it trickled down to students not having a provider, a teacher in the classroom for several weeks. And it was, the building didn't know that the person was out, central office didn't know, or, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. It's just, there was not effective communication between central office, the building, and the parents. And we're not talking about 1 or 2 days. Obviously, people are sick and they're out. That's not an issue at all. It's just when there's, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks that we don't have providers giving service and the families aren't aware of that, and finding out after the fact. And that's when as a parent, you panic. Oh my gosh, my kid didn't get services for 3 weeks. It's traumatic, even though services can be made up, but to meet that in the front and just to say, hey, we know that Jane Smith is going to be out for the next 3 weeks. We're going to get somebody in, or, just to give parents a heads up that this is going to happen rather than finding out after the fact. And that just sends everybody into a panic. So really the communication, it kind of goes back to the communication side of our first presentation of, how we just need to communicate as a team. Because really, as a parent, you're looking at your service providers and central office as a team. That's your child's team. And when there's bits of communication that's not flowing through, the optics aren't good. And that really just can set off a negative tone across the board.
We also talked about, and in the IEP committee or working group, that and I think all of us here have either dealt with this or have heard of it, the PPTs that would go on for a long time. the great deal of time. And the question came up about why PPTs don't have an actual agenda that they're following, and that agenda is sent out in advance. I mean, we send out the invitation in advance. Why the agenda is sent out in advance, so that we're able to keep the meetings on point, one, and two, keep them moving along, so that we know that the parents know they're getting to the information that they need, and that they can also weigh in to say, we're missing something here. I need to talk about this as well. We need to add this. So some sort of agenda process would be good for the PPT, was another thing that came out of that.
Yes, we did find inconsistencies where some buildings,
yep,
and even staff within buildings are doing agendas and are making sure that all of the evaluations are sent out prior to the PPT, even calling to follow up. And then we have other buildings that don't do that at all. And it's a scramble. And again, the optics aren't good as well. So really sending an agenda, setting the expectations, getting all the evaluations out in time really makes for a smooth and easy PPT, especially when the support staff is calling up the parents and saying, did you receive it? Do you have any questions? And is able to speak one-on-one with the parent. It really just kind of eliminates all the guesswork when you have a PPT. It's very quick and easy, and it's a good use of everyone's time when they're prepared.
The other,
what's interesting, I'm sorry, David.
Go ahead, Rob.
What's interesting is that's where you have that bridge between IEP and communication, right?
Yeah.
And those two are interlinked right there in many of what Amy was just talking about.
Exactly. And then our last point, I pulled up the agenda. So the last point is, I got it. I'm sorry. Is to send out a survey when you have your PPT and your IEP has been sent out. It'd be great to send a survey to the parents. And there was a sample in our presentation. How did it go? Did everything meet your expectations? Do you have any questions? A follow-up is always great, because sometimes you can read through after and say, oh, I don't understand what this means, or I thought we discussed this, but this is written. I think a survey is a great way to wrap it up, and last chance for parents to ask any questions. And that data is phenomenal data that you can use to build up an even stronger system. So, I don't feel that right now, the way things are running, there's not a lot of data to back up what is going on. And I'm very much a data-driven person. So if we have that information, again, that can all be turned and used to really make this whole IEP process that much stronger.
And I just
and
think
it's a great way to get parent input as well.
What I was going to say, because I was looking at sample survey at the end. I think just as a team, it gives us really good information to see, is what we're doing coming across well? Is it not? And if it's not, that what can we do to improve that? Because I think that is really an important piece. Is right now it's, I think it went well, but really to know if it went well, and if it didn't, how can we improve those practices?
Well, it falls into the,
Exactly.
The customer service kind of ideology as well. And I think that's an important piece. But, there was talk at, well, are we adding more work? But I actually think that the value of this will also, I think, streamline the process and alleviate some of the workload, because you're getting the information, and the information is constantly flowing back and forth. So you're not having to run around and chase it down, so to speak. And I think that would help. Really, I guess it just sort of sum up and then go to questions, but that, understanding that as a council, what we are doing is dialoguing, and a series of meetings and dialogues, and identifying places that we feel are valid concerns on a macro level within the district. And so we then want to take and distill that down and hand you guys a report that hopefully you are able to then take and, utilize pieces of it, or implement if possible, and we move on to the next year and we keep moving forward. So thank you for your time. And if you guys have any other questions about anything that's in the report, please feel free.
So I have a couple follow-ups. A lot of what you said ties in with what the Urban Collaborative had found in our audit. And Rob, I know that Lauren Katzman has been working behind the scenes on a roadmap for us about how we check off everything that they uncovered. And perhaps you can double back with this group next month and just give us an idea of when these two particular items, now that we have not only Hannah and Fatima on the phone, but we also have now a lead data and analytics person, which is a newly established role. Perhaps that these two items in particular are things that with Lauren's help, we can bubble up to the top and get actually some timelines against how we put procedure in place to address them.
Absolutely. And she is going to be working with our principals tomorrow.
Oh, awesome. Great. I did want to note one of the call outs in your report was on the website. And I'm sure you guys saw that we have a soft launch of a new website that just went out. I just wanted to flag up front that the team is going through the specialized learning section of that website. And some of the things that we identified that the developers are working on updating and that Rob and Dr. Estrella and the larger team are having conversations on are, I did ask for the term special needs to be removed from our website. As many of you know, special needs is not, or it's become an offensive term within our community. Disability is diversity, as Lauren Katzman said to us, and specialized learning is a need just like any other human need, and it should not be called out as such. And with that in mind, a lot of higher education colleges have changed the term specialized learning and specialized education to services for students with disabilities. So I've asked Rob and Dr. Estrella to engage the group on whether or not we do a complete overhaul of our naming conventions and we move away from specialized education, definitely moving away from specialized needs, and change all of our vernacular to services for students with disabilities. I don't know if anybody here has any comments on that and would like to contribute to, what Rob is going to be brainstorming with the team about. Okay.
Well, I'll just jump in real quick and say, a lot of the things that we had discussed all throughout this year, we realize are now in a huge transition. I think the website is sort of an obvious one, that had been brought up numerous times. And then as we were finishing writing the report, it was, hey, we're launching a new website and we're doing this work. So we are very, I think the parents and the educators on the NSPED PAC have been very happy to see that a lot of these things are being recognized. And so we feel that we're just, here in a way reinforcing that they do exist, but we see the work that you guys are doing to make those changes. And I think that's important to call that out.
And I think after reading your report, it fit in very well with the strategic plan, right? All the things that when they did all the surveys of all the groups, communication was an issue. Yours is from a lens that's specific to this committee. But I think that the overall work that's being done in communication in the district with the website, with other things that are in place, recognizing that we're not doing as good a job as we can be doing with all parents, right? That umbrella, it will help all the things that need to be done under special ed too. But then to look at this specifically, with the PPT piece and the IEP piece, how can we make sure that this is being done better than it was before? So I think the alignment of the things that are happening will also hopefully make it all go quickly. The improvements come quickly.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to call out was there was a nod to the chain of command, or what used to be called the chain of command, and how escalation is addressed within your report. And that is something with the new team hierarchy in place. I've asked Dr. Estrella and Rob to just make sure that we communicate down to our community what the new chain of command is. And I'm not sure that that's the language we're going to use. I find it to be a little harsh moving forward. What's our escalation point to ensure that our feedback is not limited to the folks that work with our children on a day-to-day basis, or even the principals, and that it is reaching a district level and that there's shared learning and collaboration across the district?
I think at the school level, it's called the ladder of referral.
Okay, that sounds much better. Okay. Does anybody have anything else on the NSPED PAC report? Okay. And with that, the next item on the agenda was a update on ESY.
I just wanted to bring a brief update. One of the pieces, we have a new summer program this year, and one of the most exciting pieces that I wanted to mention is our experiences, and our students have been going on different experiences. I know they've been to the beach and they're going to the Maritime Aquarium, and I just think that these different experiences have really amplified the work that we're doing. I mean, we have many students that are involved, and I sent it out a little bit out last week as part of a report of the different sites and the different programs that we have in place from preschool all the way up through 22 and 18 to 22. And I just feel like providing more experiences and providing high quality programs is something that, you know, our summer this year, our ESY program is different than we've had in the past. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. And hopefully we're going to continue to grow that program, but also look for these experiences as much as we can. So that was it.
Can I just add something? My child is not in the ESY, but she is in the Summer Academy, which is it's the same program.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot thank Norwalk Public Schools enough for this program. It is absolutely hands down the best program ever that my child, either woman, has ever been in. The experiences at the Maritime are amazing. My daughter gets off the bus. She tells me all about her day, which is a fantastic way to communicate, get those skills. Miss Hare will tell you, she knows my daughter, she gets off the bus and just can't chat enough about what's going on. So it not only are these experiences great for their learning, but it's also helping them on their social skills, communication skills. They also have specials throughout the day, art, music, gym.
Mm-hmm.
It's keeping these kids in a routine that they're used to throughout the school year. So the transition into the program was easy. Transition from program into regular school is going to be nice and easy as well. But I really cannot thank the district enough. This is an absolutely amazing summer program. So thank you, everybody who's been part of it.
Glad to hear that, because that was really the goal, was to really provide experience for students so that it wasn't this, you know, daunting task of I'm going to school in the summer. It was really more of having these great experiences, and it really has been an amazing summer program so far. So we're really excited.
All right.
Yeah, if Erica, if I could just piggyback off that, my son just gets a couple of hours a week, but it's definitely the eye that we've all been looking for, an individual eye. So, you know, while he's not there all day long, he doesn't need it, and he gets what he needs, and it's for a couple hours. And you know, rather than just kind of shoehorn him into something that, you know, doesn't necessarily work or is unnecessary, that's not happening. He's getting very strategic services. So I just wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. If no one has any other comments, Suzanne, we just have the minutes left if you wanted to move those.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting on June 29th. I think I have the date right.
I think that was the date, yes, because we had to move it back a week. Yep. And I will second that. And that means we are all set for the evening. Any final thoughts? No? Okay. Well, we will see you guys again at the end of August. And at that point, we'll have more comments on the reopening plan for the fall. We have our town hall meeting, I believe it's August 19, right, Rob? And we'll follow up with this group with any Q&A specific to services for students with disabilities. And I have a wonderful August and the rest of your July, and we'll talk to you all soon. So with that, we'll call the meeting to close. All right. Good
Happy
night,
summer,
everybody.
everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. We look forward to working with everyone.
Same here.